Now we turn to children. Mustn't forget that classical learning can begin at a very early age, and we're going to look at certain aspects of children's literature and classical antiquity with Elena Ermolaeva.
Dear President, dear colleagues and dear friends, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference and especially Maria Eleftheria Giatrakou. In my paper I give a short outline of the situation with the children literature, with ancient reception in children literature in Soviet Union. I presume that this subject is absolutely historia arcana for the most colleagues, for the most my European colleagues. And then I focus on only one subject, the books for children that were written by the classical scholars. In the Soviet Union, do you hear myself? It's okay? Okay. In the Soviet Union, the unified Soviet secondary school system excluded teaching of classical languages at all. So children's literature mostly served as a tool for creating Homo Sovieticus. Soviet children knew ancient Greek myths and legend mostly from the book of Nicholas Kuhn, who was professor of Moscow University. And the novels about Alexander the Great and Spartacus by Raffaello Giovannioli were demanded especially. It happened that the best children's book about antiquity was written by a classical scholar, Professor Solomon Luria. This photo of Luria with his son is very important for me. I will explain you why. His book, The Letter from a Greek Boy, appeared in 1930. He told himself that if he finished a serious scientific research, he would write a children's book based on the explored material to show what he had learned himself in an easy way. Let me tell you about Professor Luria. He graduated from the St. Petersburg University in 1913. His correspondence with Vilamovitz is known. His wide scientific interests were reflected in almost 20 books and 200 articles. In 1949, Professor Luria was accused for cosmopolitanism, and he was fired out of the Academy of Science and the Department of Classical Philology of Leningrad University, where he had been working as a professor of ancient Greek language. Then Luria became a professor in Lvov University in Ukraine. So, how did Professor Luria start writing for children? Together with his small son, you see his face here, his son had already learned to read. Professor Luria became enthusiastic about the children's magazine Hedgehog. So for this magazine, Salomon Luria decided to write a book about an unusual papyrus of Axourinchos. It was a letter from a Greek boy to his father, who had not taken him to his journey. So first I would like to show you a text of papyrus. Which inspired Professor Luria. Theon Theoni to Patri Haire. You see. It's papyrus of the 3rd century AD. Theon to his father Theon, greeting. It was a fine thing of you not to take me with you to the city. If you won't take me with you to Alexandria, I won't write you a letter, or speak with you, or say goodbye to you. And if you go to Alexandria, I won't take your hand, or even greet you again. That is what will happen if you won't take me. Mother said, Archelaus, it quite upset him to be left behind. It was good of you to send me present on the 12th, the day you sailed. Send me a lyre, I implore you. If you don't, I won't eat, I won't drink here now. Professor Luria liked this boy for his daring character. He said, from this letter, we see that even in those times, the children's life was not so bad. And of course, there were children who could keep their parents in awe. Let me tell some words about the content of this book. Professor Luria shows the original text of the letter. Line by line, with Russian transcription and translation. As the story develops, we follow the Greek boy in his daily life. For example, we find ourselves together with him at the lesson of grammar at school. Teacher Lampriskos forces pupils to write proper names according to the alphabet in a right way. Achilleus, Bion, Gaius, Dion, etc. A certain boy cannot manage to find a name beginning from Kappa, and he writes Crocodilos instead. Our vivid Theon is bored. He looks at the wall, and suddenly, he sees an inscription in a corner, read up to the right. He looks for with curiosity and reads. The one who reads is a monkey. Actually, this is a true story also told in the papyrus. Then Lampriskos forces boys to write a long dictation. After each sentences, they had to write a phrase, Philoponei opai medares. You see, Philoponei opai medares. Be diligent, lest you will be whipped. It seems to me that Luria's artistic method, namely to choose an ancient boy and to look at the world with his eyes, and thus to discover the ancient world for modern boys and girls, became very fruitful and popular in Soviet children's literature about antiquity. I have found several epigones of it. This so-called boy method indeed is widespread in all the countries, and it has some deeper roots. Let us remember Voyage de Jean Anarchis, written by Jean-Jacques Barthélemy, a member of the French Academy. The book of Professor Luria has a great success, and a second extended edition of it appeared in 6 years. Professor created a new character, a Jewish cosmopolitan Apollonius Iopan, who was a pedagogos of a boy. I would tell you that Luria's book, The Anti-Semitism in Antiquity, was published in 1923. The pedagogos of the boy starts an uprising against the Romans in Alexandria. The uprising fails, and Apollonius perishes. So our boy becomes a witness of the slave revolt. Later, Professor Luria rejected this version as artistically poor. I would like to remind you that in the Soviet Union, slavery was the key theme for ancient history on each education level, from school to the academy. The slave uprising was almost an obligatory element of antiquity in children's literature. So, was there any influence of Soviet ideology in Luria's book? It seems that he was loyal to Soviet power, but at the same time, he was inclined to the risky deeds. For example, a note-writing book with the yellow pages without a cover was discovered in his archives. Its text was partly written in Latin alphabet, partly in strange characters looking like hieroglyphs. That was a diary encoded in the ancient Cypriot syllabarium. There, since 1947, he gave a true estimation of the Soviet regime as a slavery one. By the current Soviet laws, Professor Luria committed a heavy political crime and was menaced by Gulag, but he still preserved that Cypriot writing book, which was a real Historia Arcana. So, why did Professor Luria and other scholars write the books for children? How do you think? Why? What is your answer? One of my colleagues cynically answered, for money. It's hard to deny, but there must have been other reasons, I think. Intelligent people could not stand by just watching how the whole generation was fooled by propaganda. I convinced that they were simply open-minded persons who loved their ancient studies and wanted to share their love for and knowledge about it. Thus, they managed to keep the classical tradition in my country. And in conclusion, a grandson of Professor Luria, you see him smiling here, was one of those who created our classical gymnasium, Petropolitanum, in 1989. And 2 years later, Anton van Hoff visited our school and involved us to Euroclassica. So we have special thanks to Anton van Hoff, who was secretary at the time, secretary of Euroclassica. We have special thanks to Anton he visited our school many times and has written some articles about it. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Elena, and that was a lovely tracing forward from quite a long time ago right up to our present Euroclassica conference, seeing those connections all fall into place.